Good Friday morning, everybody. It's Julie Roginsky here with Jeff Jarvis and Michelle Kinney for the Breaking the News podcast, where we talk about all things media. And Jeff, you had a wonderful column in Katie Couric Media this week where you talked about Tony DeCopel. Jeff was helpful enough to help us learn how to pronounce his name because we have to decope with him. So Tony DeCopel's premiere on CBS Evening News this week. He was going to start on Monday. He started over the weekend because of our little Venezuelan misadventure. And it's been one disaster after another, which you outline very nicely in your Katie Couric Media piece. If people here do not subscribe to Katie Couric Media, please go check out Jeff's piece. I will drop it in the chat in a moment. But why don't you summarize for us what I think we all would agree with, which is this has been a shit show.
Absolutely has been, and one can look at this at the trivial, mocking somebody on TV level. He was ungrammatical, couldn't get a plural straight. He got all flummoxed when he thought that one segment was going to be next, and in fact it was another segment. Which usually TV people, one of their key skills is to faint, but he nearly fainted, and so that's the trivial level. At a more serious level. I'll cut to the chase. It is straight out pure administration propaganda.
Yep.
The show has, as in the first 3 or 4 episodes, is all about giving a platform to Trump cabinet members, starting with Pete Hegseth, who got an unprecedented 3 blocks on the show just to spew his macho BS and got wiffle ball questions in return. He had Kristi Noem on. He then praised Marco Rubio. It was supposed to be a little light moment at the end of the show, but he paid honor to Marco Rubio. When he was he's trying to travel around the country to really get a sense of the people. So when he was in Miami, where he's from, he teared up talking about it, as if, did they not watch broadcast news?
I realize
that's the plot.
News. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was
and he is that character. He is the crying character on broadcast news. And the whole controversy in broadcast news was how the crying was faked for the camera. There's just no sense here. There's absolutely no sense
here. He did not watch it because he's 43 years old, and so is Michelle. And I have to say that movie came out when they were both like 5 years old. So I don't.
Is he? I'm the same age as him.
I think so. But the point is, broadcast news came out in the 80s.
He looks older than you.
So Michelle. I don't. Yeah, Michelle, you look way younger.
Yes, way younger.
I don't have kids. It helps.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that he has watched it, but he should. He should.
So it's laughable, but it's more pathetic. And all he is, of course, is a cipher for Barry Weiss to ruin the news. It's, as I think we said last week, it's puppets all the way up. It's he is Barry Weiss's puppet. Barry Weiss is the Ellisons' puppet. The Ellisons are Trump's puppet. Trump is Putin's puppet. Puppets all the way up.
It's like a little Russian nesting doll, right?
Bingo. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so it doesn't really matter what he does. The point is what she's doing to the network. There's another story out from Oliver Darcy, who does spectacular media reporting, the best there is at Status, that now Barry Weiss is interfering with an Anderson Cooper piece about Trump's white South African, air quotes, refugees.
Sorry to interrupt you.
60 minutes.
60 minutes, right?
60 minutes, yeah. Yes. So, 60 Minutes and CNN and CBS News are dead. They are dead to journalism. That's that. But if you look at the whole state of mass media, which we've talked about on this show often, if in fact the Ellisons take over CNN and Barry Weiss ends up in charge there, and we look at the state of the New York Times that we talk about every week, and the Washington Post, which is already dead, and local television with Sinclair and local newspapers with hedge funds controlled by conservative companies, it's a disastrous picture. And should we worry about what happened to CBS Evening News under Tony DeCopel? And of course, Katie Couric cares about that since she held that anchor chair for a while. Yeah, we should, because CBS News still has reporters, and there's some good reporters there, and it still has an institution that matters, except it doesn't matter anymore. It really doesn't. And CBS News is just one indication of what's happened to American mass media and journalism there. And so what happens next? And what I say in the piece with Katie Couric is that independent sites like hers, like this one, podcasts, newsletters, and such, are, I think, the future. And it's a spiky, messy, chaotic future, but I think that's appropriate for a pluralistic society. We need pluralistic media to replace monolithic mass media in a pluralistic society. So there'll be a fuss about Tony DeCopel, but it'll go away, as fusses do. And in the end, the CBS Evening News, with a median age of 58 and dying, simply doesn't matter anymore. And its audience is a fraction of what it was in 1980 when Walter Cronkite had his last full year. It had an audience of almost 16 million. It now has an audience of barely over 4 million. That's 1.25% of the population of the US. It doesn't matter. And in business terms, it's 500,000 people in the key demographic, and it doesn't matter. So Bari Weiss has appropriately ruined CBS News. That was the goal, and she's done it. And so any trope left about the idea of liberal media is over. There's liberal journalists still, but every company in legacy mass media is now in one way or another controlled by the conservative right wing.
Let me ask you about 60 Minutes, because I agree with you that the evening news does not matter, and I don't think has mattered for a long time. But 60 Minutes continues to be, I believe, probably the last appointment viewing newscast for people who are not addicted to Fox News, right? Like, of course, there are people who watch Fox News that are addicted to the Five, or they're addicted to, Hannity or whoever, and they make an appointment to never miss that. But I think for the rest of us, 60 Minutes continues to be something that, it's 7 p.m. here in the East Coast, let's turn on 60 Minutes. And not just for people who I think are engaged politically, but their ratings reflect it. Engaged people just want to get some sort of news gathering, who are not necessarily living and breathing this stuff. Is this the end of 60 Minutes? I mean, are we watching the demise of what is considered to be the gold standard in broadcast journalism?
Yes. I don't think we've seen the full parading of the corpse yet, but there's no hope for it. There's no hope when Bari Weiss is in charge. There's no hope when she's going to be picking at these stories. And one thing I've seen on the socials today is people saying, well, Anderson Cooper can afford to quit and protest. And we've talked about this before right here, where what I normally say is that if you're a kid working for Sinclair in some podunk town and you can barely afford to live, I'm not going to hold you to quit your job because they're scum. But if you're Anderson Cooper, and if she manages to interfere with this story about Trump's apartheid apologists coming to America as, air quotes again, refugees, then the judgment's on him and the judgment is on 60 Minutes. And so I can't see how people of conscience can stay there in the long run.
Let me give you the counter argument here, and I'm not embracing it. I'm just giving you the counter argument. Trump is not forever, right? Presumably, if we continue to have free and fair elections, and that's a big if, I know, but I guess if you're a hopeful person, you believe that this is going to be over in 3 years. Do you just suck it up for 3 years, knowing that 3 years from now, hopefully there will be a return? There'll never be a return to what was, but there will be a Democrat in charge who will not force Bari Weiss to do this kind of stuff. And in fact, might potentially tell the Ellisons that if they want anything done again, they have to get rid of Bari Weiss. And so your job is to hold on for 3 years and see how it goes and hopefully come back to doing your mission.
It's a great question, as you usually have, but I'll expand it. And at some point, if the news organization you work for is not appropriately performing journalism in this time of all times, then I think you've got to leave. And I don't say that lightly, and I say that from a position of privilege. I'm emeritus, Latin for old. I've got a 401k. I've got a house. It's easy for me to say.
Well, so do they. Let's be very clear.
At some level,
every journalist at CBS has a house. I'm not worried about them financially.
Yeah. So at some level, depends on where you are. It depends on what your level is. But if there is any time to use your privilege, it is now. And if you can't, and I would apply the same to the New York Times. And there's excellent work. We're probably going to talk about some very good work that came there this week. And that's maybe a harder question because it's still the New York fucking Times. And there are still good journalists there. But I'm, profoundly and chronically disappointed is a light word for what they're doing. The Washington Post, should you get the hell out of there? Yes, you should, because of what it's doing. The day after Venezuela, the Washington Post waved the flag and praised the action. I don't see a strategy in which Barry Weiss suddenly becomes woke.
No, she just
suddenly
leaves.
becomes progressive.
He's gotta go.
I don't see one in which the Ellisons do. I think they've permanently ruined it. And so, no, I think 60 Minutes is ruined, and we've got to develop the next spiky media elsewhere.
I would love to just show the Tony DeCopel. I just want to, if people don't know this, from his own personal Instagram account, replying to comments in the CBS News account. And he wrote this. Someone had said, I grew up on Cronkite. Too bad CBS has lost its Tiffany shine, but good luck to you anyways. And he responded, what did you love most about him? I can promise you we'll be more accountable and more transparent than Cronkite or anyone else of his era.
What does that mean to be more transparent than Cronkite? I have complaints about Cronkite, right? When Cronkite said, and that's the way it is, if you were black or a woman or Latino or an immigrant or LGBTQ, it wasn't the way it was in this country for you. It wasn't representative. It was a monolithic media. So I got complaints about Cronkite, but a lack of transparency isn't one of them. He just picks words out of the salad bar to throw up there and make him seem like he's smart. Same with the video, which we talked about last week, in which he threw academics and experts under the bus.
Oh yeah, we're not going to listen to the elites.
Right. And when he was challenged on that on the socials, what did he do? He name dropped Herbert Gans, one of his professors at Columbia. I happen to have Professor Gans's book right there. And so I then came back and I said, oh, so you've thrown the academics under the bus, but now when you want defense, you hide behind an academic.
When it's convenient.
Yeah,
right.
he's
very
and he's not an elitist, right? I mean, I love this. Like, we're not going to have we're not going to be elitist. Listen, we're a Columbia family here. My husband went to Columbia. Like, it's a great, I'm not denigrating Columbia. I would be thrilled if my 13-year-old ended up I wouldn't be thrilled. He's got to get out of here and go somewhere else. But hypothetically, Columbia were in any other city and not down the street from where his parents live, it'd be wonderful if he went to Columbia. So I'm not denigrating Columbia at all. But I also believe in the opinion of experts. And I would never denigrate the opinion of experts. But it is very rich coming from a Columbia grad.
In a townhouse, a very expensive townhouse in Brooklyn.
Right. Who is married to somebody who's also part of the media elite in that she has her own show at MSNBC.
And also grew up in it. Her parents were the helicopter that was filming the OJ chase. Like, that's what, like, they're part of this, like both of them.
Yeah. And so that's, I mean, don't denigrate the elites when we know which parties you go to. I know this because I've seen them as some of them, right? Like, what are you denigrating here? What do you like? I know where you hang out, and you don't hang out with the people. You don't.
No, this is faux populism. And
exactly.
And then the show itself was no platform for debate or that Vox populism, where the only side he presented after Venezuela was celebration. He presented absolutely no debate, no dissent, no concern, nothing else.
He saluted Marco Rubio. He said, Marco Rubio, we salute you.
Yep.
What serious person on CBS Evening News is saluting any political figure of either party? That is insane.
It is from that. I think he was trying to be funny. Like, who's that ad that we're like, we salute you, whatever, man.
I know, but like, we don't know you well enough for us to even know what you mean. You know what I mean? Like, the audience doesn't know him.
And it's look, Katie Tur, and I have this in common with her, is a big fish fan, and she always works fish into her stuff, right? And I love that because I love fish too, and yada yada. I could have a fish off about like
peace. We have peace. We have commonality. There we can build bridges, Julie.
We have commonality, right? So like
fish.
Cool. Fish, right? Over not fish the fish the band, not fish the product, not fish the food, or fish the things that swim in the sea. But she we know this about her, so that if she starts suddenly quoting really weird, obscure stuff that people are like, huh? We understand that she's making references to a band that a lot of people may not be familiar with. We don't know, to Michelle's point.
Ari Melber of her.
Right, I was going to say.
White Ari Melber.
Yeah, Ari Melber. White Ari Melber.
Ari Melber.
Ari Melber's into rap. Nothing in common with that. But she and I have a lot
of hip hop. Loves the hip hop.
Right. Like she and I have a lot in common when it comes to fish. It doesn't matter. The point is, I guess he's trying to be like her, where she's got her shtick, right? But first of all, she's got a cable news show. It's a little different. Second, if you're trying to be a little bit more like with the people, like Vox Populi there, then let us meet you first, as Michelle said. Get to know you first, to know what you're like.
We don't know you.
Like make an allusion to the ad that you're talking about, like whatever, we salute. Like Dan Rather, who is still alive and still doing wonderful work on Substack. If people ever want to read his Substack, I've talked about this before. He's got a really good one called Steady. And you think about somebody like that, and you think about Katie Couric getting that seat and what a big deal it was, and how people were all focused on it. And it was big news. And now nobody gives a damn. Nobody cares. And for him to try to be cute about it, and for him to try to be like, I'm one of you, but let me quote a Columbia professor, I'm one of you, but let me talk about the $1 billion house I used to live in before my father, skipped out on the family, and start crying. Like, come on.
I know. It's like, this is, all of these people do this, right? It's like they all went to Ivy League schools, but then they rail on the elites, and like, this is something to either be embarrassed of or something to be against. Like, we don't like smart people, and we don't like read books. You don't need books. You just need to search things on the internet. Like, that is, it's the what's the Tom Nichols book? The Death of Expertise.
In fact, it was Tom Nichols who went after DeCopel about throwing elites under the bus.
Right. Which is so very Tom Nichols of him. Right. And I just want to play this clip also of him having a little bit of a meltdown. Like, again, you brought this up. They had put the wrong visual up or something, and he got confused about what was coming next. Like, again, I come from the world of live theater and improv and stuff. So this is like foreign to me. I'm like, you just go with it. Like, you
pivot.
Right. You just pivot. Like, you're just making yourself look worse and like an amateur. So I just want to show this clip. Let me push play here.
With Maduro now out, that base of power and influence could be out too. All right, to other news, as you just heard from Jill. Well, to other news now, to Governor Walz. No, we're going to do Mark Kelly. First day, big problems here. Are we going to Kelly here, or are we going to go to Jonah Kaplan?
Dead air is also a sin.
We're doing Mark Kelly, possibly demoted from his retired rank of captain in the Navy. Hegseth issued what's known as a letter of censure for the Arizona Democrat over his participation in a video that called on service members to defy illegal orders without specifying which orders he had in mind. Hegseth called what the former combat pilot and astronaut did an act of sedition. Now we go to Minnesota. A surprise announcement from the Great Lake State there today.
So he got in rhythm, but if you watch they put all the full episodes up online, and if you watch it, they fixed it. I suspect they fixed it for the West Coast feed.
Oh, they did?
Oh, yeah. But then once online, you can't see that. So that, folks, you could have to see that live here, where you can't see it from CBS. I want to go a slightly related thing here. So Versant, now the new company that owns MS Now, its stock came out this week, and it tumbled fast. I forget what percentage down the
Really?
first day, 11% the next day. The next day it gained 1%. This is actually a factor in the takeover fight over Warner Brothers Discovery, because part of what the Ellisons argue is that CNN and company are being overvalued, and they're going to point to Versant and say, "See, this cable stuff, this linear television ain't worth nothing." And so our purchase to take over the whole thing versus the Netflix is going to leave the cable channels separately, and the argument there is they have a value that hasn't been calculated in this. Sorry for all the financial mumbo jumbo.
No, I mean it matters.
But I just do want to clarify the reason Versant stock. It's been a while since I've been at CNBC, but putting that hat on for a second, the reason Versant's stock stumbled is because if you're a fund that owns, and if you're an index fund and you owned Comcast and you owned the parent company of MSNBC, you had to sell your stock in Versant because it's no longer part of the index. And so it is not a surprise. Let's keep an eye on what Versant does in the next couple of weeks, and then we can understand the real value of Versant.
But my larger point is how much we now depend on MS Now. In legacy media, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think it's kind of it. Things that were called liberal media weren't before. Things that were liberal media didn't admit it before. But all the rest of it, including the New York Times, the way they're operating these days, look at how they treat Mamdani, ain't liberal media. The Washington Post ain't liberal media. CNN is scared to death. It's not liberal media. MS Now is the last place that will, from 4 o'clock on, say we're liberal media. And I'm worried. A really good point, Julie, about why the stock went down the first few days. It's being exploited by the Ellisons,
right?
Unsurprisingly,
but stupid, because everybody knows. I mean, the people who would be making the case know that, yeah.
Well, everybody, Donald Trump may not, so that he's playing a game there.
That's true. You're right.
But it just strikes me how much we depend upon, and I like MS Now from 4 o'clock on a lot. I care about it. Joe Scarborough gave another call to Donald Trump this week, but
oh my God, yeah.
But and the afternoon, no. But what happens to MS Now? What do you think? How does it fit in this linear television news ecosystem now, with CBS gone? ABC, as we said last week, is identifying the Trump Kennedy Center. NBC, now that it's rid of liberal MS Now, is going to show its more conservative stripes. MS Now is it, isn't it?
Well, can I actually mention something that I thought was insane, which is that the only network news that mentioned, I believe, this murder in Minneapolis when it happened was Disney, was ABC.
Really?
NBC News did not that first night.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe I forgot what it was. There's so many things that happened this week. I think it was Minneapolis, but it was something that happened this week that NBC did not talk about, and CBS, of course, both sides, the whole thing. It was either Venezuela or it was the shooting in Minneapolis. But the point is, and I forgot which one it was, so I should probably look it up before I talk. I did know yesterday. There's so much that goes on every day that my brain bandwidth can't keep track of.
It's hard to keep the horrors and
and that's what they're counting on. But
yeah.
MSNBC is interesting because MSNBC, MS Now.
Julie, MS Now, yes, gotta get it right.
I still can't. It's like Twitter and X.
Can't.
Like I can't.
Yeah.
I can't
Oh well, that's different. That's different.
Yeah.
It is.
That feels like resistance, right?
I'll go with MS Now. It's a dumb name, but I'll go with it.
Yeah.
But speaking of the New York Times and speaking of this horrible situation that happened in Minneapolis, when the first headlines in the New York Times came out, it basically parroted the federal version, because ICE got out with its narrative very, very quickly, and the New York Times headline writers just went for it. And
regurgitating.
And to your point about what the Times is doing, which is so disappointing, they get on these hobby horses sometimes that are so obvious. Like right now, they're hobby horses. We hate Zoran Mandani. We're going to bring him down. Back in 2020, when Michael Bloomberg was running for president, they got on the Bloomberg hobby horse to the point where I had a reporter from the Times call me and say, hey, you run a Me Too organization that hates NDAs. Do you know any other, because remember Bloomberg was getting under so much trouble because he was holding all these women to NDAs, and Elizabeth Warren went after him for it.
Right.
A question that we asked the moderators to ask, and they didn't, but Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Good for you. Good for you.
But Elizabeth Warren went after him, and the New York Times on the news side called me up and said, hey, I know you run this organization that wants to get rid of NDAs. Do you know, I mean, you know, other campaigns use NDAs too, right? It's not Michael Bloomberg. And I said, oh, really? Who are they? And they started going down the list. You guys should, it's not just Bloomberg. You should talk about that too. And I thought that was so interesting because they were so obviously in the tank for Bloomberg, because AG and the Sulzbergers all hang out. It's all, again, the same social circles. Everybody hangs out together. And, now they're on this hobby horse because AG and the rest of that crew obviously don't like Mandani. And now that's seeping into the news gathering at the Times. And my attitude about Mandani is, I don't care whether you like him or not. You're that's not your job.
Well, right. I mean, Mamdani wasn't my first choice. I don't know that he was my fourth choice, but I ended up voting for him in the end, and whatever. I'm hopeful that the guy does a great job. He's the mayor of the city that I live in. Give him a fair shot. Report things as to also, there's a lot of people in this city who care very deeply about the things that he's talking about and how it affects our lives. And so report that information to the people who live here.
So let's look at how they reported it. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I was just, it's unfair. And it's not even about him. Being as a New Yorker, right? Being New Yorkers, it's personally offensive. I want to know what's going on. I don't want to hear what your slant is about it. I actually this is where city and state and stuff, some of the more, local political outlets and stuff are, a little more, I don't know, trustworthy. I won't go to the Times for this stuff. I just won't. Bless you.
So let's look at what they did today with Mamdani and the New York Times as we speak on Friday. Yesterday, Mamdani and Hochul announced free childcare. Age 3 up at first, then eventually age 2 up, right? Which is phenomenal, which is amazing. And Mamdani was mocked at every turn. This was an impossibility. But clearly what happened, Hochul, whenever I can see what Hochul at his inauguration, you could see her looking at this enthusiasm saying, I can't do this way. I've got to go along with this. This is a train I want to be on. Yeah. And so she came in, and the two of them announced this yesterday. Triumphal, important,
life-changing,
surprising, a great success for him and for both of them together. So what's the New York Times headline? Zoran Mamdani and Kathy Hochul are pals right now. Will it last?
Yeah.
And then right below that,
what is this, page 6?
right.
Well, yeah, except it was the homepage. It was page 1 of online. It was right there promoted. Right, they often ignore Mamdani, but when they do put him up there, they do this kind of stuff. And then below that is this really weird story, which I linked to next, where they reported on a meeting that Mamdani had with Steven Spielberg, treating it like it was some kind of scandal. Billionaire film director Steven Spielberg. It was not on his schedule. The agenda was not clear. They treated it like it was some kind of crazy. Now, number one, while other billionaires are supposedly leaving New York, this is also the day when Steven Spielberg moved to New York.
Right, and also Steven Spielberg makes movies in the city of New York. He shot West Side Story in my neighborhood. Of course he wants to know the mayor of this city. He wants to do business here.
And he makes Schindler's List. He makes movies that matter there. And so the Times was trying to cook up something here that simply doesn't exist.
Well, what they're trying to cook up, and this is every time, and it's the New York Post does this all the time, and it drives me insane, right? Mamdani talks about being a populist, but yet his wife is wearing $600 shoes to the inauguration. Okay, I'm sorry. Has anybody checked out what Melania wears every day when her husband's trying to be a populist? Like, what the hell?
Or Katie Tour.
Or Katie Tour. Well, I don't know.
Or how expensive are Tony DeCopel's suits? Yeah, Mamdani's cost less than $500.
Yeah, I mean,
also, like, these people don't know the difference between socialism and communism, so there's also that. But yeah.
So that's where we saw the Times, and that's the Times. I won't say it's worst, because its worst is, I think, the interview they did with Donald Trump, which was pure stenography. And they got enraged for 4 years that Joe Biden wouldn't sit down with what they thought was their birthright, that AG thought was his literal birthright as the sixth generation publisher of the New York Times, to have an interview with Biden. 4 reporters from the Times sat down with Trump, and it was pure stenography. It was nothing came out of it. As much came out of it as came out of Joe Scarborough's phone call with him. He's excited.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the New York Times article about Kimberly Guilfoyle. And then how that might have played into the sit down with Trump. Now, I believe that because they had one of their good reporters on this. This wasn't like,
Elizabeth Buell-Miller.
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth Buell-Miller, who's a real reporter. This is not in the culture section. She's for real, right? They sent Elizabeth Buell-Miller to Athens to effectively write, and I hate to use this phrase, but I'm going to use it, a blowjob about Kimberly
We've been using that several times.
I have to say it. I'm sorry, because I don't know what else to say it. A hagiography does not begin to talk about what this is.
A fluffing.
Beyond that, but yes. Kimberly Guilfoyle. And I'm going to stow my own personal feel. I know Kimberly Guilfoyle. I sat next to her on the 5 for a long time. I spent a lot of time with Kimberly Guilfoyle. If I were to write an article about Kimberly Guilfoyle, that would not be the article that I would write. And I found it fascinating that buried in paragraph 6, 8, 10 of this is why she left Fox News, which was because of a sexual harassment, a serious sexual harassment incident. I know the woman who was harassed, without disclosing her identity, because the New Yorker never did. She's a lovely, lovely, lovely young woman. And it wasn't just her. I mean, Kimberly was a terror to everybody who worked with her. And I can believe that she continues to be a terror today in Athens. And that probably would not be hard to find if you actually interviewed people in the embassy or other people who work with her, because nobody changes their personality like that. Instead, what we got was this, and how everybody wants to meet her, and she's the toast of Athens.
Ambassador
Kimberly, talk of the toast of Athens, and how not just the talk of Athens, but really the toast of Athens. And, it was just a fluff piece is exactly what it was. And I have to ask why. Like, what is so fascinating about Kimberly Guilfoyle that merited this story? Why, Jeff? Because there's got to be a bigger agenda at play here. It can't just be that some woman goes to some not overly important ally. She's not the ambassador to the court of St. James or to Berlin or to Paris. I mean, it's Athens. Like, I'm not suggesting Greece isn't important, but it's not necessarily in the top rung. I don't think the ambassador to France gets this kind of profile in Times, and never has.
Right.
What are we talking about here?
I don't know. I think, my simplistic theory, but that oftentimes is the right theory, is that the Times is literally trying to piss us off. It is trying to piss off the liberals. It is playing us. And the Times wants to own the libs, and the libs are its own readers. And my theory about that is that that's in part a newsroom saying, we know that subscribers are now our financial support, and we want to act like you don't own us. And so that's why we're going to piss you off. That's my theory. I also think this also fits in with DeCopel, is to the extent that I'm surprised no one came back and said to me, well, of course he should have on cabinet members. Of course, that's the government in charge. Why wouldn't he, as a journalistic organization, have on the cabinet members, right? And I think to an extent, the Times is doing the same thing here. Well, why shouldn't we do a feature on an ambassador who's well known? I will ask you about her judgment about this to this extent, Julie. Is she in any way qualified to be an ambassador?
Of course. I mean, look, to be fair,
yeah,
Kimberly Guilfoyle, which is a lot more than Kimberly Guilfoyle has ever been to anybody else. A lot of people who are ambassadors are not qualified to be ambassadors, right?
Yeah,
like,
true.
You buy your ambassadorships. She bought hers on her back. Other people buy them with a lot of money that they donate to campaigns.
Michelle's shocked.
I mean, I think even she would not deny that she got that ambassadorship because she dated Donald Trump Jr.
Mm-hmm. It was a consolation prize.
Yeah. And of course, in typical Kimberly Guilfoyle fashion, in the first sentence, I'm looking for a husband, which is of course her entire thing of trying to marry rich or over and over and over again. This is how she makes money.
And if my memory is correct, wasn't she all celebratory on January 6th?
She was deeply celebratory on January 6th. She was doing her little Kimberly Guilfoyle dance. The problem for Kimberly Guilfoyle is no amount of plastic surgery is gonna, time catches up with all of us, right? And unless she goes and sees Stephen Levine, and I would hope he wouldn't take that assignment, she's not going to look like.
I don't want my work out there. I don't want my work.
Yeah. Not so, I mean, Kimberly's approaching 60. So time's running out for how Kimberly gets places. But I will say this, and as you can tell, I do not like Kimberly Guilfoyle at all.
That's why we like her. Kimberly.
Yeah. But and neither is anybody who's ever worked with her, which is why I find it fascinating that Elizabeth Buehmiller, who again, good reporter, did not talk to anybody in that embassy or even try to talk to anybody in that embassy who would on background tell her how they feel about how Kimberly Guilfoyle runs that embassy. I do not believe that Kimberly Guilfoyle is working her ass off, for starters.
Buehmiller has her detractors as well, to be clear.
Okay. Well, she has an editor, does she not? Who probably would have said, "Hey, why don't you go talk?" Like pull a Barry Weiss, for instance. Why don't you go talk to people who might not agree?
Yes, exactly. Why don't you remember how she acted on January 6th? Why don't you? Another piece. The other piece that could have been written is that Times piece where they think that they're being very ironic and subtle. And they can say, well, can't you see that we're making fun of her? Oh, you're just not sophisticated and savvy enough to do that.
Oh, yeah, you're not smart enough to get the joke. Right.
Right. But this was not that kind of piece. This was a flat out puff piece. Mm-hmm. Having smashed the Times as they fucking deserve many times today, should we praise them for a moment for work that they did that was really good? Michelle?
Yes. I have to pull it up here. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
No, set it up.
So I think it's really important that we talk about Minnesota and what's happened there and how this has been treated and how this is being covered, especially now that it's going to be an FBI DOJ cover-up. A terrible story. And one thing I did was I looked back at coverage of Kent State, because to me this is a present tense Kent State. Once again, Michelle is too young to have lived through that. But
I do have to say, I think I said in our email exchange, my dad had texted yesterday about that as well. He felt that same feeling. He's like, this feels like a Kent State moment. Hopefully, again, having watched, there's a great documentary called the end of the 60s or the death of the 60s or something like that. And it's about Kent State and what followed. And it's like how everyone just kind of went on their way afterward.
And so a couple things happened here. One is that the New York Times, I think, displayed bad, in my view, news judgment. It still played Trump-centric world above Minnesota. Yeah. Which I think is important. And then number two, when I look back at Kent State, which of course was page one of the New York Times with that famous picture of the student kneeling over the victim, that day, the next morning, the Times had an editorial, which in both sidesing said, well, the students should have been so violent and so on, but it decried the action. It made clear that their own reporter had not heard sniper fire, that this was authority run amok. And the Times the next day did the same thing. The Times editorial page, to my knowledge, is silent about Minnesota. And so its news play has been bad. Its editorial view has been bad. But having said that, it's really important to give credit to the Times when the Times does excellent journalism. And they did in forensic journalism of the videos.
Yep. If you're listening and not watching, it says videos contradict Trump administration account of ICE shooting in Minneapolis. An analysis of footage from 3 camera angles show that the vehicle appears to be turning away from the federal officer as he opened fire. So I'm just going to play this here. Content warning, guys.
Fatally shot a motorist, 37-year-old Renée Goode. Trump administration officials said these were, quote, defensive shots fired because the officer was being run over.
And a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over.
But our analysis of bystander footage, filmed from different angles, appears to show the agent was not in the path of the victim's SUV when he fired 3 shots at close range. Here's how events unfolded. Moments before the shooting, the victim's maroon SUV is stopped in the middle of the street. Multiple unmarked federal vehicles are idling nearby. Secretary Noem alleged the motorist, quote, was blocking the officers in. Bystanders are blowing whistles and yelling at federal agents.
Go home to Texas!
Then, federal vehicles start moving toward the maroon SUV, with sirens and lights blaring. A federal agent films the scene on his phone. The driver rolls forward slightly, turning left, and stops and waves for others to go ahead. 2 agents exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle. Moments later, shots are fired. Let's look at the scene again more closely. This is the agent who shoots the driver. He walks around the car filming and disappears from view. Other agents pull up and order the driver to exit her vehicle.
So she's told to move, and
one of them grabs at the door handle and reaches inside. The SUV reverses, then turns right, apparently attempting to leave. At the same time, the agent filming crosses toward the left of the vehicle and grabs his gun. He opens fire on the motorist and continues shooting as she drives past. The moment the agent fires, he is standing here, to the left of the SUV, and the wheels are pointing to the right, away from the agent. This appears to conflict with allegations that the SUV was ramming or about to ram the officer. President Trump and others said the federal agent was hit by the SUV, often pointing to another video filmed from a different angle. And it's true that at this moment in this grainy, low-resolution footage, it does look like the agent is being struck by the SUV. But when we synchronize it with the first clip, we can see the agent is not being run over.
Really
in fact,
effective.
his feet are positioned away from the SUV. The SUV crashes into a white car parked down the road. A bystander runs toward the collision. The federal agents on scene do not appear to rush to provide emergency medical care. Eventually, the agent who shot the motorist approaches the vehicle. Seconds later, he turns back around and tells his colleagues to call 911.
Not injured.
You shot someone! You shot someone!
Agents block several bystanders who attempt to provide medical care, including one who identifies himself as a physician.
I go check a pulse.
No! Back up! Now!
I'm a physician.
Hey, listen, I understand.
At the same time, several agents, including the agent who opened fire, get in their vehicles and drive off, apparently altering the active crime scene.
Hit and run. So let's note, to start with, that this kind of journalism would not be possible without the video that came from witnesses who years ago journalists mocked as citizen journalists. Who wants a citizen surgeon?
Yeah.
The ability, the power of witnesses to now share what they witness is incredible, and it enabled this. And we all watched that video. It was getting looped like crazy. It's disgusting how often it was looped because it's violent and horrible, but we needed to see it. And the Times did, I think, an excellent job of bringing this together and got the best that they could of analyzing this in a clear and sober way that showed that the administration is lying at every turn. Now, The Guardian, top of its page today, says that the administration has been telling nonstop untruths. I wish they just used the word lie, but fine, it's synonymous.
Can someone explain, like, really quick, why is it that they don't say lies? Like, it's not, there's not like some rule.
The
that you
belief
can't
is,
say it.
the argument is that one knows the intent, that to lie is not just to say something wrong, but to intend to do so. And we can't know the intent. It's BS journalistic argument to hide behind, but it's the argument made all the time. But in any case, this, in a classic case of journalistic show don't tell, fine. The Times in this case did superb journalism, and I wish we only had more like this.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have to say, what happened here is murder. And it would be very helpful for the media to call it what it is.
Yes.
Because I know he has not been convicted of murder. So you could put alleged murder in front of it, go ahead.
Yep.
But in the same way that O.J. Simpson was branded a murderer by everybody before he was tried and ultimately found not guilty, I might add. We saw what happened here, and we saw this with our own eyes. In fact, this is much more clear than OJ because we actually have video of what happened.
Yeah, and I, if you don't mind, I just quickly want to also point to the other video from, I think, that same vantage point where they also show that first responders the vehicles were not allowed to drive in on that block, and they actually, from the rescue truck from the fire department, had to come in, grab her out of her car, and carry her lifeless body down the block on the other side of the caution tape to perform CPR. And I apologize to sound like a broken record if you've been watching me talk about this or listening to me talk about this week. I am the child, I am the grandchild, I am the great-grandchild of first responders. That is the most abhorrent thing I have ever seen. Ever. This is a major city. The response time is quick. These are people who are the best at this. And the fact that these ICE officers, they're all accomplices in this murder as well.
Yes.
And I thought that at least, some of that, the New York Times reporting in that video showed that. The physician, saying, I want to help. I'm a physician, please. And they let her sit there alone to die. If she wasn't dead, they certainly died on their watch. And that's the other part of that too. I just wanted to say that while we're talking about it, like the cruelty and lack of humanity from these people is on another level that I have never witnessed in my lifetime.
And so it's the same song I sing every week, and why I'm glad we talk every week on this, but it's all the more frustrating every time. Where is the rage? Where is the shock? Where is the anger? Where is the honesty in our journalistic media? It's not there. This just becomes normalized. And how do we then politically mobilize when we don't have even that basis of journalistic explanation and summary to mobilize around?
Yeah. Well, I would say that, their rage is not reflective of the rage of the American people, because the American people are outraged. And at least, I know the local reporters, and I think CNN had somebody on the ground, interviewing people, showing video of people screaming at them. I mean, when you've got, boomers, who otherwise would look like a Trump voter out there talking about their dads, fighting in the Battle of the Bulge, saying he would not recognize this country. We all have to be out here. I do feel like there has been a crack in the American people in the last 36 hours. I think in that Kent State kind of way.
Kent State.
And people are awake. And so I appreciate like the people on the ground who are putting the microphones in these people's faces and asking questions. I think it's reflective of how a lot of people feel. But they're not the headlines, to your point. Like, I'm like, you're not telling the story. This is not.
But you know what also happened after Kent State, Michelle, is that a lot of that was around the incursion into Cambodia. And as I look back at the New York Times at the time, The public pressure around Kent State at the time caused Nixon to back off and say that he would get out of Cambodia. Now, what actually happened, I didn't go as many papers as I had to know when that actually happened. But the public pressure was clear because the pressure in the media was clear, because people were quoted to this effect, because they had that platform. And yeah, we all have this platform now, but we're excluded from that media platform that is still the one that is paid attention to by those in power.
And it's interesting because, to me, there is a through line here between our Democratic leadership in Washington and what the media is doing. And I'm not suggesting the media is supposed to be carrying the water for Democrats, because they're certainly not, but they are supposed to be carrying the water for the truth and calling a spade, calling things as they are. And the reality is that they're not doing that any more than Democrats in Washington leadership are doing what they're supposed to do. And so something is, look, I just had this conversation with somebody this morning where if Democrats get control of the Senate this year, which if we have free and fair elections, actually appears more likely than it did 6 months ago.
Knock some wood, please. Knock some wood.
Right. Knocks on wood. Does Chuck Schumer, survive as the Senate now majority leader? And I said, he better fucking not, even if he gets the majority back. And the person I was talking to said, well, he will, because he will have gotten the majority back. And I said, no, actually, they're getting the majority back despite Chuck Schumer because of him.
Yes.
In the same way here, you have the media whose job it is to just call, you're just supposed to hold the powerful to account. It doesn't matter who it is. Nobody's asking you for special favors, but your job is not to be a transcription service. And then, as you said, Jeff, you had that New York Times, that New York Times, 4 reporters sat with Donald Trump and once again let him talk. And yes, there was some newsworthy stuff out of it, which is he basically said the only thing constraining me in global affairs is my morality and, I forgot what, my mind or something, both of which he has lost long ago. So, and I guess the Times thought that was a huge get for him to say that. The reality is he could have said that to me. He could have said that to you. He could have said that to Megyn Kelly. He could have said that to any MAGA journalist, because all he did was talk, right? And they just,
and once again, they didn't go to the next level of saying, well, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
What is that? That's dictatorship, authoritarianism. That's fascism. That's the end of the rule of law. They don't go to that next step.
Or more clearly, Mr. President, what does your morality tell you it can do?
Yes.
What does your mind tell? What does that mean? What does your mind and your morality tell you can do? Does that mean that you can just go ahead and annex Greenland?
Yeah.
Does that mean that you can go ahead and invade Canada? Does that mean you can go ahead and invade any South American country you want? Like, what does that mean to you, Mr. President, based on your morality and your mind?
Yeah.
They did not do that. And so we are just left with some sort of quote here about his morality and his mind, and leaving it up to our imagination, which again is, he could have said that, to some guy at Mar-a-Lago. You don't need to be the New York Times to get that kind of information. And it's the same through line here, which is that our institutions, whether it is our leadership politically or institutions journalistically, are just failing us in this moment. And the New York Times, as we all said, had a wonderful moment where they did what they were supposed to do, which is they reviewed the videotape and they basically said, yes, ICE is lying. Not in so many words, because God forbid they use the L word, but ICE is lying. I'm not really going to pat them on the back for it, because that's like the minimum. Like, what do I pay
that's what you should expect. Yes.
A low bar.
I pay a lot of money for my subscription.
But let's mark it. Let's note it when it happens.
Yeah.
Like noted, but it's like, I pay a lot of money for my subscription. It's the least that I expect.
Yes.
And their video content, by the way, the New York Times does a great job with this stuff. I like the investigative.
It's a different staff.
Yes,
Right.
and I remember during COVID, they were also very effective in telling that story in New York
The
too.
reason
But
they're
anyway,
not asking him these questions, and it's not because the journalists who are sitting with him are not good journalists. It's because it is access. They are thrilled that they got 2 hours or however many hours with the president of the United States, and they're thrilled at this access. And my attitude is, if you're going to be a transcription service for the president of the United States, then go be any one of those jokers who he's now put in the front row of the White House briefing room and go ahead and write down what Carolyn Levitt says, because there's nothing that he's saying is anything different than he's saying to them.
Or Joe Scarborough, who this week bragged about calling him and came out with nothing newsworthy except that he was excited about Venezuela. And this is a weird thing I do because I was so bad at high school German, but I still try to look at the German publications for a different perspective. And this week I found 2 interesting ones, right? So Der Spiegel's view of the Times interview, their headline, if I translate it correctly, is Do we want the Eiffel Tower in Central Park? The U.S. president pursues power politics that know no rules. Right? And they have a viewpoint about it. And the Süddeutsche Zeitung said, in Trump's America, it's now your own fault if you are shot. And the writer, Peter Burkhardt, writes of government without decency or empathy. Those are judgments. They are appropriate journalistic judgments that our media and our democratic leadership too often even refuse to make. And so what do we have, once again, to rally around? We're all angry out here. We're all, it's beyond anger. We don't know what to do. And we need leadership. And I'm getting constant text now saying, well, there's going to be another No Kings March soon.
Yeah, Indivisible had an emergency call last night at about 8 o'clock. I missed it because I was doing a live with Tara Setmeyer. But I do know that like they're trying. But again, like on the right, this is where the independent media and the MAGA media machine is so well funded, and they're so coordinated with leadership and with the White House and everything else. They're all on the same page. They're all marching to the same beat of the drum. But on the left, it's like very staggered, and people aren't compensated in the same way on the left. People are struggling to make money, honestly, and to spread the message. And that's why this stuff needs to be built so that there is a sense of community. There is a place to go. Because right now there just isn't. It's not cohesive. It's all very singular, and but everyone's kind of like this. There's not a lot of crossover.
We have to be a force.
Yeah.
Against a horrible force that now is in charge.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we're sitting here, waiting for Indivisible to put together No Kings rallies, and we go out and we get, we feel virtuous. And listen, I marched in the last No Kings rally, and I'm going to probably the next one.
I go to them all.
Yeah, but my point is, okay. And then we go and we rally and we feel virtuous. And then that's that. What the right does is they have Turning Point USA America Fest. They have Turning Point USA this. They have Turning Point USA that. They have podcasts. I mean, you look at the top 10 podcasts in the country, I think 9 of them are on the right.
Yes.
The fastest growing podcast in America right now is Candace Owens. I mean, that's should scare the shit out of all of us. Holocaust denier.
Yep.
Which is why you're seeing people like Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson embrace her, because they want a little part of that sweet growth.
And again, there's more crossover. I mean, Megyn Kelly's got her whole thing, and she was doing a thing with Tucker Carlson the other day, and then she's got her thing with Mark Halperin, and it's like they're and Nick Fuentes now. My God, there's all this crossover there with them, because again, like they understand that there's strength in numbers, and they are seeing the writing on the wall for MAGA 2.0. Yeah, for MAGA 2.0, they know how important the messaging machine is going to be, even more so. And that's why they're repeating all this populist stuff that Nick Fuentes is saying, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it's all America first, America first, America first. And like that's the next iteration of this. And they all have shit tons of money. We're like 15 years behind. We're so behind. And that's where I'm like, can people please open their pockets? And I'm not just saying to us, I'm saying to like everybody, the entire apparatus. Like, and listen, I know the people who are the content creators, on the Democratic side. I see what they're going through. I see how they're struggling to keep up. We're all trying to keep up. We're in a rapid response thing with the DNC, Julie and myself, with content and messaging all day long, but there is no one in charge. There is no.
Well, let me ask you, since I'm not in those meetings, and you hear the rapid response, are the messages that they propose smart? Are they the right ones? Are they the right messages to the right people? How do you judge?
There's two things. One is there's nobody's that in that chat, nobody's proposing messages. It's just people talking to each other or content creators. I am on a Talkers.
That's shocking.
Yes. Well, not really. I am on a DNC Talkers email I
haven't been to a meeting in a while, but because I was getting so frustrated that I stopped going.
Yeah, but I don't read them. But I don't read them, and I haven't read them in years, and I haven't read them through many different DNC chairs because I don't think they're useful, right? Because they're your typical like PowerPoints, like Donald Trump is raising your healthcare premiums by 166%, and then 27 bullet points underneath, and it's like,
right,
come on.
The right got their talking points yesterday, and it was like 3 lines.
I
Simple.
know what used to happen at Fox, right?
Yes.
Every morning, Roger Ailes, the edict would come down to Fox and Friends that would then carry it through to everybody else, which was effectively like, Democrats are a bunch of commie, soul-sucking vampires. Go talk about it. And it was that simple. It was that simple, right? And every day that message would come down, and every day it would be updated, show after show after show.
Credit where credit's due. Megyn Kelly said that the other day after this Venezuela thing. She said that on her show. She's like, I know what would be expected of me if I was still there.
Of course. I mean, yes. And it starts with Fox. It starts with Fox and Friends. I happen to know people who worked, who used to get those talking points at Fox and Friends. So they know what it's like. And I never got them because my job was to be the heel, but I certainly am not stupid. I see what was going on. Unlike the heel at CNN, I actually, would sit there and take it and not be a little crybaby. But, ultimately, it's absurd because on the left, you don't have that. On the left, everybody's trying to be the smartest person in the room.
Always. Yeah. And again, and that's where, oh gosh, not to go on a tangent here, but like, that's where the independent media stuff, the bleed over from that world into independent media and them telling us all how smart they are and how stupid we are pisses me off to no end. Like, I'm talking about the Pod Save America guys. I'm talking about all those guys. Like, there is so much like elitist kind of, you don't know, I know stuff that it needs to stop. And it's because they come from that world and are starting a new thing. But, and I used to be big fans of them. I listened to them when they were at the Ringer with Bill Simmons. When they first started, I had the t-shirt, I loved them, but it's gotten to be so obnoxious that, this is the kind of stuff we want to avoid and we want to get away from, not crawl into.
Let me tell you what Ailes once said to me. And I don't think I'm the only one who said this to, and I don't think this is necessarily something that hasn't been reported, but, let me tell you what he said to me. He once said to me that he specifically did not want to hire people from the Ivy Leagues. He went to Ohio State and he wanted to hire people from places like Ohio State or people who didn't go to college. Like Hannity didn't go to college. I forgot where O'Reilly, if he did go to college, where he went to college. I mean, I know he claims he went to Harvard, but I think he just got some specific, whatever. He did not go to Harvard undergrad. The point is, the point is he got people who spoke like the people to whom they were speaking.
Yeah.
And didn't necessarily hang out at the same places where elites hung out.
He wouldn't have hired Tony DeCopel.
He would not have hired Tony DeCopel.
Well, Julie, I don't know if you want to say again about Tucker Carlson, what he would have, we talked about this previously on the morning show, but you said how he rose after Ailes left in a way that probably would not have happened.
Never. Ailes did not like Tucker Carlson. Not like. Gave him the Saturday morning show to pacify the Murdochs who did like him because he was, of course, like a little mini Murdoch. But people were asking, why did he say that? Because he wanted people who spoke to the audience on their level and not people who were intellectualized. And he was not wrong. He was not wrong. Now, he did hire people who were deeply educated, like Gretchen Carlson, who went to Stanford and Oxford. And so I think, but that worked against her, right? That wasn't, he hired her despite that, not because of that. And, he did not like that I had a graduate degree. He did not like when I would start over intellectualizing, right? And I learned quickly not to do that. And he wasn't wrong, right? There's a time and a place to do that. And cable news is not it, especially if you're trying to kind of attract the audience. And for Tony DeCopel to sit there and pretend that he's one of those guys,
oh my God,
Tony DeCopel needs to take everything else he's ever been in his life, put it aside, and leave it behind. And the other thing Roger said, and he was right about this too, and I can't believe I'm sitting here praising him all this time, but he was a genius when it came to television, is he did say the camera never lies. In other words, you can never be who you aren't. Either your authenticity, the camera always picks it up. And if you're trying to be inauthentic, the camera does not lie. It will pick it up too.
Absolutely.
And he was right about that. And Tony DeCopel is trying to be somebody who he's not right now, to go full circle to what you said, Jeff. He's trying to be, on the one hand, this man of the, Vox Populi guy, And here I am using Latin, which also should never be used. He was trying, he was trying to be this man of the people, and that's not who he is. Exactly like Vance. Exactly.
It's exactly like that. Exactly.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Anti-elite, went to Yale, has had, jumping up Peter Thiel's ass. Like,
yeah.
Please give me a break.
So, all of this is absurd. And I don't understand what's going on here other than just be who you are. And Barry Weiss, for that matter, also is an elitist.
Faker. Yeah.
And always has been an
anti-elites, but they've chartered 2 private jets to fly them around or whatever it was to around the country to meet with people. Like, please, because they can't fly commercial. Please.
She's 41 years old. Listen, she had a meeting at Cafe Luxembourg, I think was status reported, right? Cafe Luxembourg is a place on the Upper West Side, which is, an elitist kind of place. A lot of celebrities.
Uppity.
Little uppity. Very overpriced.
Extremely. I don't go there.
Yeah, I don't. It's not. The food's not worth it. But anyway, she was at Cafe Luxembourg with Gayle King having lunch. And maybe it was page 6. I'm not sure if it was status. Somebody said this. And she had her security team sit at the bar while she was having lunch with Gayle King.
Why does she need a security team?
Why does she need a security? Who's trying to kill you? Who's trying to kill
you? If there's legitimately something going on, like, okay, but like...
Well, but when you run a cult, you have to have enemies. You have to be under threat.
She has plenty of enemies. Listen,
it's like she's performing that she has enemies. You know what I mean? Like,
she's not. Listen, she's been incredibly pro-Israel, so I'm sure she's gotten a lot of death threats from what she would consider to be the woke left and people who don't like that. Fine,
right.
Okay. Don't walk around with your secure. I mean, like, nobody's showing up at Cafe Luxembourg to put a bullet in your head. Like, come on. And it's the kind of crazy paranoia that's just kind of like, I don't know. Listen, I've hung out with people who are much more powerful than she is, and they don't have security teams.
Yeah, Jerry Nadler would sit at the table at Metro Diner or wherever it was. You know what I'm talking about? Like, by himself, eating soup. Or whatever it was, yeah. He was seen at Metro.
Happy to talk to people because that's what politicians do.
Yeah,
people, but yeah.
This is an odd little thing that comes from my reading of the German publications. But there was a left wing, and I think everybody acknowledges, arson attack in Berlin that left a large chunk of Berlin with no power for a week. And Germany has a history of that as well. I'm surprised I haven't seen that in the news here. Just because, the left is dangerous. Oh, we got to watch out.
Right.
Look at, right. Minneapolis was a terrorist. The left is dangerous. And they're going to start doing that pretty soon. Where they're going to be presenting us as dangerous, and they need security.
Order. Right. There was already that executive order basically deeming anybody who was anti-Trump like a terrorist, a domestic terrorist. So, it goes with, nothing's terribly surprising, but from any of this.
They're going to say they need security against you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these 80-year-old women, and I remember being out at the last No Kings. There was literally someone behind me with a walker. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is the people who are coming. Like, we're please. And that's where like the media is not covering these protests. They're not interviewing people at these marches. Like, they're just, it's a mob that they film, and then that's kind of
it's the view of the mass.
Well, and meanwhile, you've got the Proud Boys marching. You've got armed ICE terrorists at this point is what I would call them. And by the way, what I cannot believe, I don't know if you guys have seen the New York Post in the last couple of days since this horrible shooting in Minneapolis, but the New York Post has gone completely insane about this, running hagiographies about the shooter, running stories about how the poor woman who was killed was a lesbian who sent her son to a woke preschool. Like, check every box possible, right? Like, we're in the left, like it matters. Like, it matters who she
Murdochs
was.
are evil.
Yep. And this is from and people are listening and not watching. This is from David Yelland. He said, "Today's New York Post is a disgrace. I speak as a former deputy editor of that paper."
Right.
Which is saying something.
But at the same time, they're doing this, and they're excusing the fact that this woman got shot by saying, well, this guy who shot her was traumatized because somebody had tried to run him over a few months ago. He has PTSD. If he has PTSD, why the fuck was he carrying a weapon?
Psyche valves. This is why psyche
Where's the
valves
psyche
should be
valve?
required, but they're not doing
By
them.
the way, if I had PTSD, you better be damn sure somebody should. I mean, I don't have any weapons, but I shouldn't be having any weapons. Like, you don't give somebody with PTSD weapons. That's not an excuse.
No.
It actually makes you look guilty. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And by the way, how did he end up tangled with that car before? Was it like this? Like in this case, you'd think he wouldn't have walked in front of the car. A, that's not policy. And B, you'd think he, of all people, would know better.
Yeah.
If supposedly this had happened before. But under what circumstances did it happen before? Did he also incite something before?
Right. And
we
also,
haven't
he
paid-
had his phone in one hand and then grabbed the gun in the other. This is literally how he shot her, with his phone and a gun.
And we'll never be able to subpoena that because the DOJ cut out the FBI.
Well, let's be very clear. One day, somebody else will take over the FBI. And one day, somebody else will take over the DOJ. And there is no statute of limitations on murder.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what evidence will exist by then. I'm sure this man will get a pardon by Donald Trump on his way out the door, just in case, a preemptive pardon.
Well, that could happen next week. I don't think it'll happen out the door. I think that'll happen as soon as next week. He'll preempt federal prosecution. Yeah.
But,
I wonder what civil right. I don't know enough about this stuff, having decided not to go to law school. But I wonder what a civil rights case by the family could yield in subpoena ability. If the authorities are cut off, is there a private path here to justice?
Yes. The answer, I asked my husband that question, who's a criminal defense lawyer, and the answer is yes. He could be sued civilly in the same way that OJ was sued civilly. So this guy's life is going to be problematic for a very long time, which is fine. But he's not going to end up in prison like Derek Chauvin, who probably will also get pardoned anytime.
Yes, he probably will.
Yeah.
And again, probably within a week because it'll be on Trump's mind.
Yeah, which, by the way, if people don't know this, those two murders happened a mile apart from each other.
Yeah.
1 mile.
Trump does not care. He has told us now that he is constrained by his morality, which
doesn't exist.
Which does not exist, and his mind, which I believe is riddled with dementia.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
and our media call that a doctrine.
Yeah, the fact that he's calling it the Don Roe doctrine and they're just repeating it, I'm like, again, this guy comes up with these dumb things and they're just like, then they repeat it. And now
well, the Times did it again
say
today, where they had this new. It was the doctrine of realism. I can't find it real quick.
Realpolitik, is that what they're saying?
Well, no, it was a variation on. No, it was that's wiser. But they tried to. Oh, here it is. The theory that gives Trump a blank check for aggression, the true meaning of, quotes, flexible realism abroad and at home. And it tries to imbue an intellectual doctrine into the insanity that he is. They can't label him a liar. They can't label him a fascist. They can't even label him insane. They sat in the room with him. They saw the insanity. They know it's there. We all know it's there.
They must have smelled it.
Well, they can't say it because they're not qualified to say, Jeff. They're not neurologists and they're not psychiatrists and they're whatever. Like all of these things that are so apparent to all of us. Like if you've ever been around somebody who's got dementia, you don't need to be a doctor to know that somebody's lost their mind, especially if you have known them for decades and you've followed them for decades and you've seen what it used to be. Now, he was never a particularly mentally stable human being.
That's the other problem. It's certainly not a moral person.
Right. But there is a difference between his instability as a young and middle-aged man, and even when he was in his first term, and today. Listen to what he speaks. And look, he's 79 years old. It happens to everybody. I'm not suggesting people don't age. Listen, everybody's got problems as they age. But he's also got a family history of Alzheimer's. His father had it. His sister had it. I believe either his brother or his uncle had it. This is a family that is riddled with dementia. And he's at that age. And I speak as somebody who's also got that history in her family. So I'm not pretending there's something to be ashamed of. I'm suggesting that if you're 79 years old and you act this way, there might be a reason for it.
Yep.
Nothing to be ashamed of. Until they find a cure, it could happen to anybody. It just so happens to have happened to him.
Well, any, and we all know this, any sickness, weakness. I mean, the man had COVID and he was walking around like everything was fine. So he puts makeup on his thing. Like, he's never going to allow himself to even seem vulnerable, because he's been taught since infancy that to, allow yourself any vulnerability is weakness, and you must present strength at all times.
But the
And
greatest,
it's a dangerous combination, all of it.
so sorry, we're on lag, so I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
His greatest illness is narcissism. And look, Maduro, he finally made mention that what pissed him off with Maduro was Maduro mocked his dance. And now he's going to meet with Machado, and she apparently is going to give him his Nobel Prize.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right? He's a little tiny sicko boy. And the problem is that his other toys include guns and armies.
And can I just play that clip? Because we were going to play it this morning on our morning show and we didn't have time. Oh my God.
Let me ask you about Maria Corina Machado. I've had her on TV this week.
Yeah, she's a very nice person.
Okay, she won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
When she accepted that Peace Prize, she dedicated it to you. She said to me this week, both on TV and radio, that she wants to give the Nobel Prize, her Nobel Peace Prize, to you for liberating her country. In 2023, she won over 92% of the vote to be the leader of the opposition. Maduro kept her off the ballot. Do you have any plans to meet with her? And would you accept the Nobel Prize she wants to hand to you?
Well, I understand she's coming in next week sometime. And I look forward to saying hello to her. And I've heard that she wants to do that. That would be a great honor. I did put out 8 wars. 8 and a quarter, because Thailand and Cambodia started going at it again. So
I'll put the list up.
I give a quarter, so it's you put the list out. It's a hell of a list. But I've stopped 8 wars, and I think it's been a major embarrassment to Norway. Now I don't know what Norway has to do with it, but that's where the committee is located. A lot of Norwegian people, and it's been a very big embarrassment to the country of Norway. Whether they have anything to do with it or not, I think they do. They say they don't. But, when you put out 8 wars, in theory, you should get 1 for each war, okay? Because some of these wars were going on for 30 years.
Everyone can see what a sick fuck he is, except our media.
Yeah.
Well, and if they see it, they're not saying it because
it's journalistic malfeasance. Or at least say, what's going on here? Let's talk to the experts. Let's examine this. But they won't even examine the questions, because that would seem to be judgmental in a way that they don't want to be.
Someone in the comments in the chat just now, and I'm trying to find it to give credit, just compared him to Charles Manson in that he's a really bad. Here it is. And now it's not. Here it is. Charles Manson, Jim Jones hybrid. Oh wait, that's not it either. Well, anyway, saying that basically he keeps his hands clean and has everybody else doing his dirty work and dirty deeds for him. And I think that actually was a very
it's Henry II. It's Henry II. It's will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest, right? It's things like that where he says it and then
no, this is it. Yeah,
That was very intellectual of you, quoting this.
I don't know if it's intellectual of me. I'm just kind of a nerd when it comes to medieval British history. So everybody's got their hobby, and sadly, I'm a loser. But
the Jim Jones comparison. So I edited some of the stories that led to the trip to Jonestown that caused Jonestown, and I was in San Francisco at the time, and so at the Examiner, it was our story. And we lost a photographer there, and our reporter was shot. And people at the time, we couldn't believe how anyone could be. Some were forced to drink it, but many drank the Flavor Aid, and it was Flavor Aid, not Kool-Aid, by the way, folks. And this is cult behavior.
Yeah.
And we constantly look. I mean, how Lindsey Graham, not the smartest
Oh my
bulb on
God.
Broadway, but somebody who functioned for years, and he's just a classic cult member.
Oh my God.
Along with all of them, right? And what is it about the human psyche that enables it to be taken over in that way? And it's not AI, it's not the internet, it's not your phones, it's your politicians. It's your
I mean,
right-wing
Lindsey
media.
Graham also is especially, and I will use the word hysterical. He's been hysterical in all of his media hits in the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
You know, he's a barnacle on the ass of whatever powerful man is in his vicinity. It was John McCain, and now it's Donald Trump.
Yeah. Okay. On that note, my friends, we've been at this for an hour and a half, and
I'll have a weekend to recover.
we have a weekend. Well, not really, because I'm sure something will invade some other country.
Yeah, something terrible will happen, I'm sure.
Behind
It's
Cuba, I'm
Friday.
sure that's Friday, so I'm sure by Sunday we'll probably be in Havana. Good to see everybody, and wonderful to see both of you, and we will see you both next Friday.
Wonderful.
And by the way, we didn't announce that we have a brand now. Should we say
we
that?
do. I'm sorry.
do.
Yes, we have a show.
We said it a little bit in the beginning, and I'm going to make sure we have
did.
like visual branding as well. But
We'll
go
put
ahead.
up fireworks later, but yes.
Yes. The show is called Breaking the News with Jeff, Julie, and Michelle. So please watch us every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Or if you can't make it on Fridays at 11 because you might have a job or something else to do, you could catch us on YouTube afterwards. As people
And I'm going
do.
to I'm going to start putting this starting today on Apple Podcasts as well.
Yes.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. On that note, have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you very soon. Take care.
Bye everyone.